had a dream last night where I was in, I think it was Africa, with, I think it was Elle that was with me. But I didn't really see her. I think that I know we traveled there together, but I didn't really see Elle in the dream. So anyhow, we were in Africa and I was in some deep water, like a lake or something, and I came out onto an embankment. Like, it was a small embankment. It wasn't very big. Like, you know what it looks like, when you come out of the water and there's like sometimes a little piece of ground, and then, well, there was a little piece of ground, and then some dirt went up a little. There was a little bit of dirt, like a wall, and then there was another embankment higher up. You see that it's kind of like the embankment was eroded. But anyhow, there was two levels to an embankment that I climbed onto. And while I was on there, I saw something come out. I knew something was kind of in the water behind me. I wasn't going fast to get out because I knew something was there, but I was coming out of the water and I knew something was behind me. And I looked up at the overhang of the cliff that overlooked the embankment that I was on. Like, and by cliff, I mean like just a few feet higher than me. And there was some kind of like safari dude, looked kind of like Crocodile Dundee, hanging up there. He had this cool safari hat and stuff, and he was hanging over the top embankment, and he was kind of reaching to me going, and he was like, I think that there's a hippopotamus coming up behind you. He's like, hurry up. And so I hurried up, and he reached over, and he was trying to, I don't know what he was trying to think he was going to do, but he was trying to get this hippopotamus with his hand. And he realized that once he grabbed the hippopotamus, and he pulled up, and it was just a little hippopotamus. And it bit him on the finger or on the hand, but I don't think it hurt him very bad. And then I looked behind me while I was standing on the embankment, and there was an alligator. I knew it wasn't a crocodile, and it was scary, and it had scales, and it was big enough and everything, but it wasn't quite as scary as a crocodile. It was, and it was like a little bit different colored even than an alligator. It was kind of more grayish green, and there was some blue and whatever, and it didn't get me either. And I forget if I went up onto the higher level of the embankment, and I didn't. Anyway, the dream was over. And yesterday, one of my kids was telling someone some information, telling my mom something, and I was really eagerly thinking about like they're going to share information and how is it going to go over and whatever. And my kid didn't get a hold of me to let me know. So I kind of was thinking this morning when I had this dream, or when I remembered this dream, I was kind of thinking, I bet you that dream relates to that conversation between my mom and the kid. So I analyzed this dream a little bit more, and what I came up with is something that I hadn't really thought of. Yesterday, I was praying to God, and I was kind of like, have you ever heard the verse where Paul says that right now you see God in a mirror dimly lit? Or like, it's like our faith, we have faith in God, but it's nothing like it'll be when we see him face to face. And I was praying yesterday, and I was kind of like, God, I'm just like, I wasn't really complaining to God, but I was kind of saying, like, life isn't bad, but I was like, I've been at this for many years, and it's hard to, it's like I've been waiting for someone my entire life, and I get glimpses of them, and it's like I see them on TV sometimes. It's kind of like the equivalent of that, but you don't actually like have, I mean, okay, God, you do have a relationship with him, but come on, I don't know how to voice it, but I'm sure you all understand that it's not the same thing as your spouse that you see day to day, or your kids or whatever. It's not the same thing, because this person is more important than them, yet you're not, the most people, and myself included, is not seeing God like that. And so it was kind of like in the dream, El, which stands often just she seems to represent God in dreams, as well as the fact that the name for God is El, or one of the names for God is El. And so I went to Africa and God was with me, but I didn't really see God. I wasn't like actually on vacation with God. But the guide came. It wasn't really even my guide, it was just the guide. The guide came and saved me. And the guide stopped me from being hurt. I wasn't even hurt by the baby hippopotamus, so the threats I was seeing weren't even big, but the guide took care of it. And the alligator is smaller than a crocodile. Like, it wasn't big and it never touched me. It never touched the guide either. And so it was kind of like God was saying, like, especially when I'm talking about eschatology, I point out that it's just like, just because we take the Bible literal, or just because some people, let's say, take the Bible, take the Old Testament all literally, then they get to some prophetic parts of the New Testament and they say that's also literal. And the symbols, they're like, those are absolutely literal. Like, they don't call them symbols. Like the when you're seeing the things come out of the abyss and scorpions stinging for 5 months, they're like, those are literal scorpions, or at least they stand for Apache helicopters, things that are in our real time, but they're real things. Well, as we know, you take Psalms, obviously not completely literally, because the Psalms aren't, they're poetic language. You know, when you hear a poem, that is a poem, and a poem does stand for something. And so you're taking it like how a poem is written. You're taking it literal to what a poem signifies, but it's not that the poem is actually standing for real life. Like, there's similes and metaphors a lot more than when you're just giving a narrative, or it's obvious in a narrative when you're using a simile or a metaphor. But in a poem, it's kind of like everything is a simile and a metaphor, or just about everything is a simile or a metaphor. So it was kind of like, so the Holy Spirit, while he's not tangible, we take him in the dream. It was telling me, you have someone with you all the time. And it's not the same as God the Father, in the way that God the Father isn't on earth with us. But the Holy Spirit, he was like, of course you're not going to say I'm really seeing a literal person, because the Holy Spirit actually, the whole essence of the Holy Spirit is that he is a spirit. You don't see him. You don't feel him. You don't, in the natural sense, you don't, in the literal sense that we're used to, we don't actually communicate with the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit is alive, and he's active, and he's working in our lives, sometimes in ways that we actually see what's happening. We don't see him, but we see what's happening. Well, God was saying, that guy, that literal guy who's embodying what he was actually, who he's supposed to be. So even though you're not seeing him, he is there. Like, he's actually on the earth with you. El is in heaven. El, not my El. El is in heaven. But the Holy Spirit is doing what his job is. He's on earth being who he is. And you can't see him, but he's really for real there. And somehow, even though that doesn't answer the question exactly like I wanted the question answered, my prayer answered, I want you to know how the Holy Spirit relates to you. So God might be in heaven, and you might feel like God isn't part of your life. But for the time being, the Holy Spirit is.